What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. Now that I'm nearing the end of my pregnancy, I thought it'd be fun to do a little rewind and look back at the first symptoms I ever experienced before I found out I was pregnant, and then exactly how I found out. If you are new here, you probably don't know that I'm 21 years old. I found out I was pregnant in the fall semester of my senior year. I'm still in college and I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant. Since my boyfriend and I are both college students, we were using protection because we were not trying for a baby, nor were we expecting me to get pregnant, but here we are. It's a bit funny though because I've always loved watching like family channels on YouTube or pregnancy videos, like finding out I'm pregnant, telling my boyfriend I'm pregnant. All of that, I've always been super interested in it, especially because it's quite different from my life like as a college student, and never in a million years did I think I would be one of those people making a video like that, and now we're here. Anyways, I'm just gonna jump straight into the symptoms. Before I ever found out I was pregnant, I used to use an app called Flow to track my period and my PMS symptoms, and that was because I had changed birth controls quite a few times, and at some point it just really messed up my hormones, so I wanted to make sure that everything was on track. Tracking was really ideal for me to make sure everything was going well, or to give me a little more insight on my cycle. The first birth control that I was ever on was tricycline, and it was the best birth control I've ever been on. I've had zero problems with it, but then I had to switch because it wasn't available in Japan. So if you guys are new to my channel, I moved from the US to Japan to go to university here and kind of do something different with my life, but that's besides the story. The second birth control I went on was in Japan, and I just had an awful reaction. I was always getting infections. It just made me feel so gross. Point is, it wasn't working. And then my last birth control, I got pregnant. Tracking my cycle kind of tipped me off that something was a little bit different or off or wrong, and that's kind of when I started to notice different symptoms because I was logging it all the time in my app. Now obviously the apps are not always correct, you know, they can mess up, and of course on Flow can always change too. No matter how normal you think your body is always capable of doing a 180. That's why I wasn't really super worried at first, but then as I continued to add things into the app, I was like, about 2 or 2.5 weeks before I was supposed to get my next period, I started to notice a few symptoms that kind of stood out to me. Like, these were symptoms I had before when I usually get my period, but they were much more heightened and a lot more intense, and that's why I was like, something is weird here. I was feeling extremely exhausted. Like I've said in my previous videos, before I was pregnant, I was a super active and energetic person. I was super into weightlifting. I was in the gym about 5 to 6 times a week. So for someone who's really intensely into working out, to go from 100 to 0 very fast, I was so confused. It got to the point where I would drink a large cold brew and I could still sleep for 24 hours after. Originally I thought, okay, well, you know what, finals are coming up, I have my college thesis I'm writing, the semester is ending, you know, there's just so many things going on in my mind, my period's coming up. Originally I was like, oh well, this is just obviously a mix of everything together, and I must have been tired for a long time, but now it's just kind of all pouring out. The next symptom that I noticed was extremely sore nipples. Out of control. If there was any wind at all, I would want to cry because it would hurt so freaking bad. Sorry, I probably should have given you guys a little disclaimer. This video is going to be TMI, but honestly, I don't really care. This is all natural stuff. It happens to some of us who get pregnant. It happens to girls who have periods. Like, it just happens. Anyways, back to my sore nipples. Even having a shirt on was so bad. Before I forget, it was also like November, so it was nearing winter and the weather was getting super cold. So just like stepping outside, I was like, I used to put heat pads in my bra just to help because I wanted to cry. And that was before and after I found out I was pregnant. In my mind at the time, I was like, I'm really preparing for a heavy period. No. I was preparing for a baby. Honestly, looking back at my symptoms now, I wish I could go back and tell myself like, oh, you thought that was bad, but you just wait. You just wait. I almost forgot about this one. Sorry, I get so into girl talk. I had the worst breakout that I have had in forever, probably since I was like 14. It wasn't like 1 or 2 pimples. It was like my entire face exploded in spots. It was awful. I knew something was up with my hormones then. Usually around my period, I do break out, but not nearly to the extent of how much I was breaking out then. I wish I had a picture to insert for you guys, but I don't. The next symptom kind of makes a lot more sense and started to pull things together and give me that itch like, but it was nausea. I am already a very sensitive person. It does not take a lot for me to puke. I can puke at pretty much anything. Even just waking up, sometimes I would just feel super nauseous. I would usually experience some sort of dizziness or nausea for an hour or two until like my brain and body becomes balanced. But this was a little bit more extreme, and it only got more extreme. That was probably the worst symptom. The fact that it began so early has a lot to do with the fact that I'm so sensitive. At least that's what I think, but I could be wrong. If you are someone who struggles with nausea as much as I do, whether you're pregnant or on your period or just in general very sensitive like I am, I do have a video on surviving the first trimester of pregnancy. I do put tips in there for morning sickness / nausea, so I do recommend checking that out. All these symptoms happened about 2.5 weeks before my period was actually supposed to come, so I didn't really think too much into it, but it did give me like this itch, and I was like, okay, something is off. I just don't know what it is, but I obviously wasn't gonna freak out until I had actually missed my period. From experiencing those symptoms, I told my boyfriend that I thought something was wrong and I wasn't really sure what it was, and that I started to feel all these different kind of symptoms, and it was making me worried. We basically agreed to wait until I had actually missed my period before freaking out or jumping into any conclusions, because that was obviously not going to solve the problem. About a few days before I actually missed my period, I started to get a little bit impatient and I wanted to go ahead and take a test, and so I did without telling anybody. Didn't even tell my boyfriend at the time. I just wanted to see. When I took the test, at the time I didn't think it was a positive. I wasn't even sure if I was seeing things in my mind, if I was making it up, if it was lighting. It was really late at night when I decided to take it. In my head at the time I was like, oh, this was just a complete waste of money. This is obviously a faulty test, or I've done something wrong. So I ended up throwing it away and just not thinking about it. And at that point I was like, Khazana, you are going a little crazy. You need to chill until you miss your period. Then comes Saturday, which is the day that I was actually supposed to get my period according to Flo. But obviously it's been late a couple of days, it's been early a few days, it happens. But on Saturday, because Flo told me I should expect my period, I was just sitting there like, where is it? And it wasn't there. And that's when I start getting nervous. I text my boyfriend like, hey, now I'm really nervous, my period still hasn't come. And we agree, you know what, you can't always rely on your cycle like that. We're gonna wait a couple more days and then we'll see, because this could all just be stress. It is then midweek and I still haven't gotten my period yet, and I'm like, something is definitely up. I'm talking to my boyfriend and I tell him like, I really want to take a test as soon as possible. So we agree that on Thursday night, after we both finish work, because we were both bartenders at the time, he's gonna come over and we're gonna take tests together. During that week, I was kind of getting more and more nervous as the time went on. I was scrolling through Reddit and I was looking up all these things about, do you see a line, do you not see a line, DPO, all these like pregnancy terms that I didn't know, and just like looking up like, how do I know if it's positive? What if it's a light positive? That last test was kind of sticking in my mind, like, was I making it up in my head? Was it a faulty test? I started to drive myself a little bit crazy. At that point, I made sure to buy both a blue dye test and a pink dye test. Let's buy two different brands, two different dye tests, so we know the answer 100% for sure. All my little research started to eat at me. Then that night after work, we were both very nervous. We go home and it's just really quiet between us. We both knew I had to take the test, but I was so freaking nervous to do it. For the meantime, we were just laying and talking and cuddling and just being in the moment together. But you could definitely feel the tension in the room. I think we both had a feeling of what the outcome would be. We weren't ready to confront it. We didn't really know how to confront it. I think we were both thinking at the time like, no, that can't happen to us. I personally was so nervous to take the test that I just wanted to hold it off as long as possible. I was freaking out. Honestly, I was shaking, but obviously I couldn't hold it off forever and I needed to pee really bad. So that's when I actually took the test. I took both the blue dye and the pink dye tests with me to the bathroom. I did my thing. I came out and then I had both tests in my hands and I made sure that they were face down so we couldn't see the results. And then I started the 1 minute timer, the longest, most terrifying 1 minute of our entire lives. My heart was racing and then the timer went off. In that moment, I was not ready to flip those tests over, because you guys, you have to think about the fact that I'm a senior in college. I'm not financially independent by any means. I live abroad outside of my home country. I was in no way expecting to get pregnant because I was taking precaution. And a lot of people say like, oh, getting pregnant at 21 is no big deal. But when you're not prepared, it doesn't matter what your age is, because it's gonna be scary no matter what. Obviously now I'm so beyond happy. My boyfriend is so beyond happy. We are so in love with our baby boy. We cannot wait to bring him into the world, but that doesn't change the fact that we were so scared in those moments of finding out. So getting back to the story, the alarm goes off and I just wasn't ready to flip it, and he just says, we have to do it. We just have to. And he flips it, and there are two very dark positives on both tests. There was no mistaking it. I was very much pregnant, obviously, and I just started crying. I broke down in tears. I just didn't know how else to react. Actually, my boyfriend was the one who was super calm and collected, and he's like, crying's not going to change anything. And he just held me and we cuddled, and we just agreed that we would talk about our options later, but in that moment we just really needed to be together, and I think that was probably the best thing for us. And then, as you guys can tell, it only took us a little while later to come around to the idea of keeping our little boy, and now we couldn't be more blessed or excited or happy to bring him into this world. It's so insane to me to think about the fact that this started as something that was very nerve-wracking and terrifying, and obviously there are still parts that are scary because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a parent, but now this is the biggest blessing in my life and I'm so excited. Things happen for a reason. It was a complete blessing in disguise, but that is how I found out I was pregnant, and those were the first symptoms that I actually had before I missed my period. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't forget to like it down below. Leave me a comment because I really like to interact with all of you and talk to you guys, and then subscribe to my channel because it really helps motivate me to work harder and make better content.